get any kind of information, we will certainly pass it along.
The game tonight has been postponed. You are all safe.
March 11, 2020 is a day all NBA fans remember. It was announced that during a game between the Utah Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder, that one man had caught the virus and would end up shutting down the whole league. Rudy Gobert tested positive, and that came to no one's surprise because he did things like this. Rudy Gobert did not take this seriously at all when the virus was starting to pop up, and as a result collected the biggest rejection of his career, rejecting the league from returning to play for 3 whole months. I remember coming home from a basketball practice telling my dad to hurry up and drive home, since the Kings are finally getting their one nationally televised game on TNT that year against the Pelicans. And then Rudy Gobert killed my hopes and dreams by shutting down the league and canceling all the games being played that night.
That's right. Cry.
But don't worry, because about 3 months later, the NBA came up with a plan to continue the season. And by God, if you heard this idea 2 years ago, you would send that madman to an insane asylum with how wild it was. So basically, here was the plan. What if we take all the teams from the 1 to 8 seeds and also all the teams that were at most 6 games back from the playoff spot? So 22 teams in total, they all fly out to Orlando and stay at the Disney Resort in a secure bubble where no outsiders can enter. Not only that, but we test the players for the virus every day, and the teams all play 8 regular season games to determine the seedings, add a play-in tournament for the 9th and 8th seed, then have the playoffs in an open gym with 2K crowd sound effects. Now obviously, this had been in the works for months, and people laughed at the idea back in April, but now suddenly this was the smartest option, other than not having a season. So on June 26, 2020, it was announced that the bubble season was a go, and was finalized July 30th to no later than October 13th. The season was starting, and it was a fascinating time to be alive as the NBA was the first professional sport to even attempt a comeback. The bubble had a lot of storylines and memorable moments, so that is why the question today is, do you remember the NBA bubble? A lot of you may remember it, but you all don't truly remember it. Lucky for you, I became very attentive of the NBA this season and paid close attention, and therefore I remember everything. So let's take a look back to the Orlando bubble 1 year ago.
Curry with Tucker right with him. Curry launches a 3. Puts it in the shoot. A minute and a half to play. That's a bomb! Oh! Ridiculous!
Okay, quick side note, this is editor Tommy, and just recording this, I am now realizing that the script is 10 pages long. I did not realize this while writing, so this will probably be in multiple parts and not just be one long ass video. So there's your disclaimer. Okay, back to the video. So the bubble started with scrimmages, workouts, and checking into the bubble until the 26th of July. The world was so desperate for entertainment that an NBA 2K tournament and Players Horse tournament took place on ESPN, and that was absolute dog water, so we aren't going to get into that. I will go into the fact that these scrimmages, if I remember correctly, you were able to watch them because we were all that desperate. But as we move on to the season, it started, and the seeding games, as they were called, included some great stories. One of those being how the Suns were projected to go 0-8. Yeah, they went 8-0 in the bubble, It was super cool to watch, and the most exciting part of that run happened August 4th in a game against the Clippers with 8.2 seconds left, tied at 115. Devin Booker, with 4 guys on him, would do this.
And the Suns have it. 6 to play. Booker, this is for the win. Got it! Wow!
What a shot by Devin Booker.
Now, sadly for Devin and the Suns, this 8-0 run would still result in missing the playoffs, as one other team fighting for a playoff spot caught fire as well. But we'll get into that later, because we need to talk about Bubble Jordan himself, TJ Warren. For 6 games, TJ looked like a 2K My Career player. This was an interesting storyline at the time, and now it's not that interesting, since it was basically, what if Linsanity happened in the bubble? This happens often near the end of seasons where one random guy catches fire, and it was amazing at the time since we had been entertainment deprived for about 5 months. Overall, it didn't translate to anything, but shout out to TJ Warren for balling out. Here's some clips, I guess.
And you're seeing more of it. Warren for 3.
50 spot, give him a 50 spot right there, ladies and gentlemen. That's why the bench was up.
Holiday, shot clock down to 6, finds Warren.
Let it
Here's
go.
a long 3.
Oh,
Hits it for 53!
Oh, yeah! Sometimes you just have it, you let it.
Anyways, we should mention the crazy play-in race. The NBA added those 8 games and a play-in tournament since there was an intense playoff race before the season ended. So the teams playing for their life were the Suns, Grizzlies, Blazers, Kings, and Pelicans in the West, since the one team in the East was the Wizards, but they actually finished below a team that didn't get invited to the bubble because they suck so much. But anyways, the Kings went like 2 of 6 and were eliminated like the 3rd game. The Grizzlies went on a skid and also went 2 of 6, but they finished with the 9th seed since they were still better than the other teams. The play-in was believed to be a thing just to try to sneak Zion into the playoffs, but that team was not ready and sucked in the bubble, as Zion looked different. Like, he looked kind of overweight and he wasn't ready. But let's not get into that. So the teams we will get into are the Blazers and the Suns. The Suns, as mentioned before, went 8-0, which they needed to do to have a chance at the playoffs. Led by Devin Booker and Monty Williams, the Suns shocked the world, beating tough playoff teams going 8-0, and as we know now, showing that it wasn't a fluke. They really were that good, making the finals next year with the help of Chris Paul. And no, CP3 did not make the team a playoff team. He turned a playoff team into a contender. But back to the bubble. The last day was wild, so let's get into that right now. That day, the Suns, Grizzlies, and Blazers all played that day, and the Suns won their 8th in a row, which meant they won out in the bubble, and the Grizzlies ended up winning their last game, making them a lock for the play-in. The Suns now needed the Blazers to lose. The Blazers also have an interesting story, as before the shutdown, they were injury-riddled and out of the playoffs. Then the shutdown turned the season-ending injuries into healthy people for the bubble. Nurkic got healthy, and now they had their core 3 and a bench with Dame, Melo, CJ, Nurkic, Gary Trent Jr., and others. They lost to the Clippers 1 game, and now they needed to win out to have a chance. That loss to the Clippers was strange since Dame missed free throws in the clutch, and Paul George and Pat Bev were clowning him about it, as you can see here.
His first free throws of the day. Missed them both. Rebound knocked around. Nurkic got a hand on it. Shamet controls, and it's going the other way. This was after the Lillard miss. Morris and Beverly reacting. And Patrick Beverley's not playing, but he's still enjoying himself.
So Dame turned on a switch, and for the rest of the seeding games, he was convincing people that he was better than Steph Curry himself. Dame willed his team to victory against the Mavericks, hitting every shot that he needed to with the help of Carmelo Anthony, and he won that game. He finished with 61 points on 9 3-pointers, and here are the highlights as they were insane.
Lillard, 5 to shoot. A minute and a half to play. That's a bomb! Oh, ridiculous! Damian Lillard!
Now, Porzingis is trying to encourage Rick Carlisle to challenge. He looks behind at one of his...
A truly historic performance, but it's not over yet. I think they won a game or two after that, and now the Blazers, finding out that the Suns and Grizzlies won their last games, they needed to win that last game just to stay in the play-in. Will the Nets knock out Dame and give him the first year he missed the playoffs? They certainly tried their best, as Karis LeVert certainly wanted Dame gone as he went God mode, putting up 37 points, 9 assists, and 6 rebounds. Sadly for him, Dame had other plans.
With a floater inside. Rebound Nurkic. It's a rare miss. He was 6 of 9.
Oh my
Look
goodness.
at this shot by Lillard.
Oh my goodness. That was from the NBA logo.
Putting up 42 points, shooting 8 for 14 from 3, and willing his team to the 134-133 victory, as Karis LeVert bricked the last game-winning shot that would have knocked the Blazers out of the play-in race. And it was truly a fascinating game to watch, as me and my brother were in my room watching the game and holding our breath as he put up that shot, because we love Damian Lillard around here. Dame willed the team to victory over Brooklyn, and that leads to the play-in game between the Blazers and Grizzlies, since the Suns were knocked out sadly. A moment of silence, as everyone except Grizzlies fans wanted a Suns vs Blazers play-in tournament. So the rules for the play-in were, in my opinion, they were very good and better than what we have now. The 9th seed would have to beat the 8th seed twice, and the 8th seed would need to beat the 9th seed only once. That is way more fair, but I digress.
It's been a special afternoon. And that'll do it. The Portland Trail Blazers are in the 2020 postseason. They'll face the Lakers on Tuesday night.
Let's get into the play-in game. The Blazers and Grizzlies would go at it at like 12 p.m. for some reason, and Dame and CJ would not be denied a spot in the playoffs, as they combined for 60 in a win against Ja Morant's Grizzlies team. So now, this is what the playoffs look like, as you can see a graphic I made up here. In the East, we have the 1-seeded Bucks versus the 8-seeded Magic, the 2-seeded Raptors versus the 7-seeded Nets, the 3-seeded Celtics versus the 6-seeded Sixers, and the 4-seeded Pacers versus the 5-seeded Heat. This is from memory, by the way. I didn't double check, so hopefully that's right. I might have got the Pacers and Heat mixed up, but I don't know. And in the West, we have the 1-seeded Lakers versus the 8-seeded Blazers, the 2-seeded Clippers versus the 7-seeded Mavericks, the 3-seeded Nuggets versus the 6-seeded Jazz, and the 4-seeded Rockets versus the 5-seeded Thunder. Again, this is from memory. The Thunder and Rockets might be messed up. I don't know. So, let's get the boring series out the way and say that the Raptors beat Brooklyn in 4 without KD and Kyrie joining them. Nothing new. The Magic played their win-a-free playoff game card again, and the Bucks beat them in 5 after losing Game 1 somehow. The Celtics swarmed Joel Embiid as Simmons was out with injury, and Philly gets swept. And lastly, Damian Lillard had one last hurrah, beating the Lakers in Game 1, then sadly getting blown out in Game 2, then getting injured in Game 4, and missing the rest of the series. So now let's get into the interesting ones, starting with... Luka Magic was solidified as a star in the bubble, as the Mavericks would win Game 2 to tie the series, and after losing Game 3, down 1 after a Marcus Morris 3 in overtime, a legend was born.
End to end. Finney Smith to inbound. Back to Doncic. Doncic pulls up, three-pointer. Bang! Bang! It's good! Doncic wins the game at the buzzer!
The shot heard around the world as Luka hit a step-back game-winning buzzer beater in just his 4th playoff game. Many believe that if Porzingis didn't get ejected in Game 1, or in Game 3 gotten injured, the Mavericks very well could have won the series. We got more proof of that this past year as they pushed a better Clippers team to 7 games with the Mavericks getting a little worse. But the Clippers would win in 6, and we all start to get a little suspicious of this team as they weren't dominating on defense, perimeter defense to be specific, as we thought. Paul George was not that great, but that's okay when you got King Kawhi. But whatever, with both LA teams moving on, the Battle of LA gets closer to a reality as NBA fans rejoice. So now let's move on to one of the more forgotten storylines in this season was what happened between the Rockets and Chris Paul. Chris Paul was starting to look older in the 2018-19 season and the playoffs, and reportedly him and Harden didn't like each other, so Houston swapped him for Russell Westbrook. Go see the video in the bio for more info on that. And now CP3 is expected to rot and die in OKC. Only except that didn't happen, and he unlocked a new level of pettiness no one has ever seen, leading to a bummy OKC team to the 5th seed and just a few games worse than the Houston Rockets. It was hilariously petty as we got this iconic video to display the pettiness.
Situation with championship aspirations.
But in an intense 7-game series between the two, Game 7 was truly fascinating, as it seemed people forgot how to play basketball.
But Gordon comes up with it. Houston with the ball and under a minute to go. Oh, trying to take a charge. Adams. Gordon clean and got the ball. Houston got its hands on it. Dort for 3, blocked by Harden. Dort got it back.
So the Rockets would win, and they received the greatest prize of all, which we will discuss later. But for now... Oh no, it seems the script was way too long, and now this is gonna be a series. Will the Rockets win it all with their dumbass plan of having no big men? Why does he remember everything from the bubble, and why doesn't he fact check things other than some stats sometimes? How many parts will this series be? Did he deadass just end the video before the most exciting playoff series of the first round? Why the f would he do that? Most of these questions will be answered next time, so tune in on Sactown Tommy. Okay, for real though, that ends part 1. So thank you all, leave a like and subscribe. I will try to put these out as quick as possible because I don't like waiting for parts to come out. It's pretty annoying, but to be fair, I did not want to make a video that is going to be like an hour and a half long or whatever. I have no idea how long this is going to be, but we're going to find out. So subscribe, leave a like, share with your friends if you want. I don't really care. But anyways, I'll see you all next time in part 2.